My name is Ava Harris. I'm 33. And for the longest time, I thought I had it all. An incredible marriage to Ethan Harris, a man who built a $35 million tech empire from nothing, and a life in the heart of Silicon Valley, where money and success defined everything. But that life, the one I worked so hard to build alongside him, was never meant for someone like me. You see, Ethan always wanted the perfect wife, polished, graceful, a socialite who could fit seamlessly into the elite circles he craved. But I was never that person. While Charlotte, my younger sister, always had the right look, the right connections, the right charm, I was the one left behind in the shadows, always playing second fiddle. For years, I tried to fit the mold, to be everything he wanted, but deep down I knew I was never enough. And now, as everything is unraveling before me, I'm left to wonder, how did it all come crashing down so quickly? Was I ever truly a part of his world, or just another pawn in his game? The truth is, I'm about to find out, and it's going to destroy everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my sister, and the empire we built. The door clicked shut behind me with a finality that I didn't expect. The sound reverberated in the empty hallway like a gunshot. I stood frozen in place for a moment, the weight of what had just been said hanging heavy in the air. "I've made my decision, Ava," Ethan's voice rang out, firm and cold from the other side of the room. "Charlotte is everything I need. You, on the other hand, are not." His words were like a blade to the chest. I had expected everything but this. After all we'd built together, after the late nights and countless sacrifices, this was the moment he'd chosen to strip me of my place beside him. No longer his partner, just a shadow cast aside. He wasn't even looking at me. I could hear the rustle of papers, the click of his keyboard as he typed away, his back to me as if this was all just another corporate decision. "Don't you dare!" I whispered, but the words felt weak, fragile, like a protest in a room that had already decided its outcome. "Look," he said, still not turning. "I need someone who can navigate the world I'm in. Charlotte has the polish, the right social connections, the right kind of presence." He paused, then added, almost as an afterthought, "You've never been that." His words stung, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. My fingers dug into my palms, trying to hold on to something solid, anything that could stop the room from spinning. But there was nothing. I wanted to scream, to demand to know how it had come to this, how he could discard me so easily, like some accessory that had outlived its usefulness. Instead, I just stood there, the silence stretching between us like a chasm I couldn't cross. "Ethan," I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper. "I built this company with you. I fought for it. You think Charlotte is the answer? You think she's going to stand by you when it all falls apart?" He turned slightly, just enough for me to see the sharp angle of his jaw, the set of his lips, as he prepared his response. But then his eyes shifted, looking past me, out the window toward the city below. His gaze wasn't on me anymore. "You don't get it, Ava," he said quietly. "This isn't personal. It's business." A cold laugh escaped my lips, bitter and sharp. "Business," I echoed, the word tasting like ash. "This is more than business, Ethan. You've chosen her over me. You've made her the new face of everything we built." He didn't respond. He didn't need to. His silence said it all. Charlotte was everything now. I felt a sudden surge of anger, the kind that burns in your chest, hot and wild. I stormed toward him, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the room like a countdown to a bomb about to explode. "Do you really think I'm just going to walk away from this? From everything? After everything I've sacrificed for you?" I hissed. For the first time he looked at me, his eyes cold, distant. "If you're smart, you will." The words hit harder than I expected. Not just his dismissal, but the finality in them. There was no room left for argument, no chance to convince him. "Fine," I said through gritted teeth, forcing the words out. "Then I'll walk away. But don't think for 1 second that you're getting away with this. You won't. And when it all falls apart, Ethan, I'll be watching from the sidelines." I turned and walked away, each step a little harder than the last. But as I reached the door, something stopped me, a thought, a suspicion that crawled into my mind like a slow-burning fire. Charlotte. I hadn't heard from her in days, and now I knew why. She was playing her part in this. She wasn't just taking Ethan's side. She was orchestrating this whole thing. I opened the door, the cool night air hitting me like a slap in the face. As I stepped out into the hallway, my phone buzzed in my pocket. The name on the screen stopped me dead in my tracks. Megan. Megan. I answered, my voice trembling despite my best efforts to stay composed. Ava, we need to talk. It's about the company, she said urgently. And it's about Ethan. What's going on? My heart raced as I quickened my pace, a knot tightening in my stomach. I don't know how to say this, but I've found something. Something big. You need to see it for yourself. I paused for a beat, my breath catching in my throat. What is it? There was a long silence on the other end of the line before Megan's voice came through, tight and full of fear. You've been played, Ava. And this is bigger than you think. It's not just about Charlotte. Ethan's been hiding things. Things that could destroy everything you thought you knew about him. The air around me felt thick, suffocating. What things? I can't explain it over the phone. But trust me, you need to see this. My fingers gripped the phone tighter. Where? Tonight. I'll send you the address. It's time you knew the truth. The real truth. The call ended, and I stood there, frozen, the weight of her words settling heavily on my chest. Everything was changing. Fast. Too fast. I could already feel the first tremors of the earthquake that was about to swallow everything I knew. And I had no idea how far this would go. But I would find out. I hung up the phone, my hands shaking. Megan's voice echoed in my head. You've been played, Ava. And this is bigger than you think. It's not just about Charlotte. Ethan's been hiding things. Things that could destroy everything you thought you knew about him. The words wouldn't leave me. How could Ethan, my husband, the man I had built this empire with, be so far gone? I had always trusted him. We had built everything together, brick by brick, late nights in the office, our dreams tied to every dollar we brought in. And now it was all crumbling around me, with Charlotte at the center of it. I needed answers. And fast. I glanced at the clock, 11:47 p.m. The city outside was quiet, but inside, the silence was suffocating. I stood in the middle of our penthouse, the weight of the evening settling on me like a dark fog. I could still feel Ethan's cold dismissal lingering in the air. Charlotte was the one he wanted now. He had made that clear. But what did that really mean for me? What had I missed? What was I not seeing? I grabbed my purse and stormed out of the apartment, stepping into the elevator. Each floor seemed to drag on longer than the last, my heartbeat echoing in my chest. This wasn't just about a social circle anymore. This was about power, control, and everything Ethan had lied to me about. Megan's voice was a lifeline, but I knew what she was offering wasn't going to be easy. This wasn't just corporate strategy. This was personal, and I was about to find out just how deep the deception ran. The address Megan sent me led to a nondescript building in the industrial district. Nothing fancy, no signs of wealth. Just another ugly piece of the puzzle. I parked on the street and glanced around. The city felt too quiet, too watchful. I could feel eyes on me, even if no one was there. I shook the feeling off as I walked inside. The door creaked open with a low groan. Megan was waiting in a dimly lit room. Papers spread out on the table before her. She didn't even look up as I entered. "This is bad, Ava," she said, her voice low, controlled. "This is worse than I thought." I stepped closer, my mind already racing. "What did you find?" She pushed a manila folder toward me. I opened it carefully, as if the papers inside might bite. There were copies of emails, some that had been deleted from Ethan's account. One stood out, from an investor in Silicon Valley, dated 2 weeks ago, We need to finalize the deal quickly, before Ava figures out the shift in ownership. My stomach churned. This wasn't just about Charlotte and me. Ethan had been hiding something far darker from me, something that could bring down the entire company. I scanned the next page. Ethan had been in talks with foreign investors, talking about selling off major assets of Nexus Technologies. Without me. Are you telling me, I whispered, that Ethan's been planning to sell Nexus out from under me? Megan nodded. That's not all. He's already signed off on the deals. They're just waiting for you to be out of the picture, completely. I felt the ground beneath me shift. My legs nearly buckled. But I caught myself on the edge of the table. Ethan was gone. He wasn't just distant, he was playing me. Playing all of us. Where's Charlotte in all this? I asked, my voice barely audible. Megan hesitated. She's been working with Damon Reeves. The name hit me like a slap. Damon Reeves, one of the wealthiest investors in Silicon Valley. He had always been a shadow figure in our lives. A name that appeared in our boardrooms but never seemed to make an impact. He had ties to everything. He was the key to all of this. How long has this been going on? I asked, my breath catching in my throat. Megan sighed. Since the moment Charlotte stepped into your shoes. Ethan and Damon have been planning this behind your back, and Charlotte has been the perfect accomplice. She's been in talks with him to get the final stamp of approval for the merger. I couldn't breathe. Every word Megan spoke felt like a hammer smashing through my chest. I'd been replaced by my sister, not just in Ethan's life, but in the very fabric of everything we had built. Charlotte had helped them do it. She'd helped destroy us. I looked up, my hand shaking as I stared at the papers on the table. How far would they go? I had to stop them. But I knew the deeper I dug, the more dangerous it would become. I need to know everything, I said, my voice sharp. Every deal, every document. I'm going to stop this before it's too late. Megan stood up, moving to the filing cabinet in the corner. She pulled out a thick stack of papers, the weight of them ominous. She handed it to me, her eyes full of regret. There's more, she said quietly. A lot more. As I flipped through the documents, one name kept appearing. Damon Reeves. He's been pulling the strings all along. My head spun. How had I not seen it? How had Ethan not seen it? He was blinded by his ambition, and Charlotte had been his perfect pawn. I slammed the papers down on the table. This is war now. Megan looked at me, her eyes narrowed. It's not just about the company anymore, Ava. If you expose this, they'll come for you. I'll make them come, I said through gritted teeth. I knew what I had to do. I had to go straight to the heart of it. I had to confront Ethan, confront Charlotte. But as I turned to leave, a chill ran down my spine. I stopped at the door, my hand hovering over the handle. I felt it. Someone was watching me. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I wasn't alone. Then I heard it, a faint rustle, a shadow moving just out of view. My heart pounded in my chest. They knew. They had been watching me all along. And they wouldn't stop until I was silenced. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I stood in the small, dimly lit office Megan had arranged for us. The building was nondescript, just another industrial complex on the edge of Silicon Valley, where money was made in silence, hidden behind curtains of secrecy. But tonight the walls felt closer, the air heavier. I glanced at the papers Megan had left for me, documents laced with financial codes and names I recognized, and one I didn't, Damon Reeves. I had always known him as a quiet player in the backroom deals, but here he was everywhere, mentioned in email threads, deals with foreign investors, secret agreements that had been signed without my knowledge. This wasn't just a betrayal of me, it was a calculated attack on everything Ethan and I had built. And Charlotte? She was the one pulling the strings. I ran my hand over my face, the weight of it all sinking in. My breath came faster, my thoughts scattered, but the one thing I knew for sure? This wasn't just corporate greed anymore. This was personal. Megan stepped into the room, closing the door softly behind her. She handed me a small file, thicker than the others, and I could feel the tension rising in the air between us. "What's this?" I asked, flipping it open with shaking hands. "Evidence of insider trading," Megan said, her voice low, almost a whisper. "And I'm pretty sure the tip-off came from Charlotte. She's been leaking financial information to Damon and his associates." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. The papers blurred in front of me. "So, Charlotte's not just after the company. She's setting me up." Megan nodded. "Yes, but this goes deeper. These documents show she's been orchestrating the sale of Nexus for months. Without Ethan knowing. Without you knowing." My mind raced. I thought about all the late nights, the constant calls, the endless meetings, everything we had sacrificed. I had trusted her. Trusted both of them. "They're going to sell it out from under us, Megan," I muttered, almost to myself. "And I have no idea how far they've gone." "Far enough," Megan replied, her eyes narrowed, focused. "I found a clause in the contract, the one Ethan signed with the investors. It's been altered. The merger agreement says that once the company is sold, you, as his wife, lose all legal rights to any assets." I froze. "What?" "The money, the house, your shares, all gone. And, worse, there's a clause that says if you try to contest it, the legal battle would cost you more than it's worth. You'd lose." My stomach churned, nausea flooding my system. This wasn't just about corporate strategy anymore. It was about dismantling my life. Ethan had signed away everything I had worked for. I snapped the file shut and stood up quickly, pacing the small room. I have to stop this. I can't let them do this to me. My mind was a whirl of options, each one more dangerous than the last. I knew I had to move fast, but there was one thing holding me back. "Ethan." "You don't have much time," Megan said quietly. "The board's already aware. They're going to announce the merger in the morning. Damon's already in position. Charlotte is going to be his partner." Her words hit me like a slap. A partner. It wasn't just betrayal, it was war. "I'll stop them," I said, more to myself than anyone else. I grabbed my bag, slinging it over my shoulder. "I need to see him. I need to make him understand." Megan caught my arm before I could leave. "Ava, be careful. If you confront Ethan now, you'll only give them more ammunition." "I don't care." I shook her hand off, my voice firm. "They won't win. Not like this." I didn't have time to think about the consequences anymore. I had to stop Charlotte. I had to stop Damon. I had to confront Ethan. And somehow, I needed to make him see what he was doing before it was too late. The drive back to our penthouse felt like 100 miles instead of the 10 it was. The night air pressed in on me, the silence in the car suffocating. I wasn't sure what I would say to Ethan, or how I would make him understand. But when I walked through the door of our apartment, I knew it would be the last time I would ever step into this place as his wife. I found him in the study, his back to me, as usual. The glow of his computer screen illuminated the sharp angles of his face. He didn't turn around when I entered. "You've been gone for hours," he said, his voice cold, void of the warmth it once held. "You had your chance to leave, Ava. It's over." I didn't even flinch. His words were empty, hollow. I had heard them all before. This time, I had no intention of being silent. "I'm not leaving," I said, my voice steady. "Not until I get some answers." He sighed, slowly spinning his chair to face me. His eyes were distant, his expression tired. "I don't want to do this anymore. You don't belong here, Ava. Not in my world. Not in Charlotte's world. Not in this future I've built." The words hit harder than I expected. I had been prepared for his anger, for his guilt, but not this. Not this level of indifference. "You think I don't belong here?" I said, my voice rising, fists clenched at my sides. "You think she does?" He flinched, but only slightly. His gaze hardened. "This is business. It's not personal." It's always been personal, I shot back. You never saw it, did you? It was never about the company. It was always about you, Ethan. And now I'm done. I'm not just walking away. I'm taking back what's mine. He stood up, the tension in the room thickening like smoke. You're too late, Ava. The deal is already signed. The investors are expecting Charlotte and me to finalize the merger. A wave of realization crashed over me, the truth slamming into me like a freight train. You already signed it, didn't you? I whispered, my voice trembling with disbelief. You've already destroyed everything. He didn't deny it. Instead, he stood there, silent, his back turned to me once more. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw everything in this apartment at him. But I knew it wouldn't matter. He was gone. And I couldn't save him. The door slammed behind me as I stormed out of the penthouse, the air cold against my skin. My pulse raced as I dialed Megan's number again. It's worse than I thought, I said, my voice shaky. He's already done it. They've already signed. Megan was silent for a moment, the weight of the situation settling in between us. There's only one thing left to do, she said, her voice flat with certainty. I took a deep breath, bracing myself. What's that? Stop the announcement. Now, before it's too late. The city stretched out before me, its bright lights mocking my failure. I couldn't let it end like this. They were going to regret underestimating me. But as I stepped into the shadows of the alley, something caught my eye. Someone was watching me. I froze, heart pounding. And then I saw him. Damon Reeves. And he wasn't alone. I could feel it, the pull of the inevitable. The weight of everything Ethan had thrown away, everything I had lost. And now, the weight of my own decisions closing in. I was standing in the parking garage beneath the towering building where Nexus Technologies had once felt like my second home. Now it felt like a tomb. The sound of my heels echoed against the concrete, sharp and cold. A reminder of just how alone I was in all of this. I pressed my thumb into the screen of my phone and read the last message from Megan once again. They've already moved the assets. Damon's people are on the inside. It's happening, Ava. You have to act fast. My pulse quickened. How had it come to this? Ethan's betrayal was one thing, but Charlotte's involvement was something else entirely. I had no idea how far she had gone, but I knew enough now to understand that she wasn't just a passive player. She was in control. She had always been in control. I made my way to the elevator, the doors opening with a soft hum as I stepped inside. I hit the floor number in silence, my reflection staring back at me in the polished steel. I looked like a woman on the edge, a woman who had lost everything, but I wasn't about to lose myself. Not yet. The moment the doors opened, the sterile white walls of the Nexus offices greeted me with an eerie calm. The place looked the same, sleek, pristine, untouched, but it felt foreign. It felt dangerous. I stepped out, the air in the building heavy with anticipation. I could almost hear the buzz of frantic executives running around, finalizing deals, sealing fates. But as I walked toward the glass-walled conference room, the door cracked open and I froze. Ethan's voice floated out, calm, measured, too calm. I don't want any more delays. The merger has to be announced tonight. We need to secure the investors now, or everything will collapse. My stomach dropped. He was meeting with Damon. He was pushing forward with the plan even now. I stepped back, my pulse pounding in my ears. There was no turning back, but I had to be smart. I had to act quickly before it was all gone. I turned sharply and ducked into the nearest office, breath shallow. This wasn't just a game of corporate maneuvering anymore. It was survival. I had to expose them. I had to burn everything down before they could finish what they started. I dug into my bag, pulling out the thick envelope Megan had given me. Inside were the documents that would finally bring the truth to light, the ones that tied Damon to every piece of this conspiracy, the ones that proved how deep Charlotte had been involved, the ones that showed me how Ethan had sold me out without a second thought. As I rifled through them, one paper caught my eye. a printout of an email chain, and in the subject line the words "Final approval needed. Ava out, Charlotte in." My blood ran cold. I read the email, my hands trembling. "We've agreed on the terms with Damon. The final push will be easy. Ava's out. She's no longer the right fit. It's Charlotte now. She'll bring the right image for the board, and the investors will love it. All we need is the final nod from Ethan to close the deal. Once that's done, we can start the transition. Make sure the paperwork is ready." I could feel my world unraveling. This wasn't just a business transaction anymore. This was about power, control, and the destruction of everything I had fought for. I shoved the papers back into the envelope and pushed the door open, my steps deliberate. I had one shot, one chance to get to Ethan before it was too late. I found him standing in the conference room, his back to me, talking in low tones with Damon. My heart pounded in my chest as I moved closer, my breath shallow. I couldn't help but overhear Damon's words as I reached the door. "You understand what this means, right?" Damon's voice was smooth, calm, but there was an edge to it. "Once she's gone, everything will fall into place. The merger will go through, and Charlotte will be the face of the company. It's the final piece." Ethan's voice was tight, controlled. "I know what's at stake, Damon. I've been clear about this. Charlotte's the one who can save this. Ava, she doesn't fit in anymore." I felt my throat tighten. Ava doesn't fit in anymore. Those words echoed in my mind, bitter and sharp. It wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. I stepped forward, the tension building as I approached the door. The seconds stretched. I couldn't hear my own thoughts. I couldn't breathe. And then I heard it, a subtle click. The sound of a lock turning. Someone was at the back of the room, watching. Someone had been listening. I froze, my blood running cold. My instinct screamed at me to turn around and run, but it was too late. The door swung open, and I found myself face to face with Charlotte. Her smile was cold, calculating. "You're too late, Ava," she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "You always were." I took a step back, my breath catching in my throat. Charlotte's eyes were glinting with something dark. Something that wasn't just about business. "Ethan's already made his choice," she continued, her voice smooth as velvet. "He's already signed the deal. You're out, and you'll never see a penny of this." I could feel my world crashing down, piece by piece. This was it, the final blow. I was about to fight, about to tear everything apart. But then I saw it, the glint of metal in her hand. A gun. My heart stopped. And just like that, I realized the real danger wasn't just Ethan. It wasn't just Damon. It was Charlotte. She wasn't just after the company. She was after my life. In that moment, I knew one thing for sure. I had underestimated her. And now, it might be too late to escape. The air was thick with tension. My hand shook as I dialed Megan's number, pressing the phone to my ear with a tight grip, my mind racing. "Ava, what's happening?" she answered, her voice tight with anxiety. "They've already sealed the deal. Charlotte's moving in. Ethan's pushing forward with the merger, no hesitation. He's already signed everything." My words spilled out, panic clawing at my chest. "God," Megan muttered, the weight of the situation heavy in her voice. "You're not going to let this happen, are you?" "No." I slammed my fist against the wall, the sound sharp and echoing in the empty hallway. "But it's worse than I thought, Megan. This wasn't just about the company. They've been setting me up. Charlotte's been working with Damon, and they've got Ethan wrapped around their finger." Megan's silence was more terrifying than any words she could have spoken. I could feel her digesting the weight of my words, trying to piece together the mess. "Okay, we have to stop them. There's no turning back now. You need to get to Ethan before the press gets hold of the announcement." I didn't answer. Instead, I hung up, staring at the screen for a moment longer than I should have. The weight of the decision crushed me, but there was no choice. I had to get to him. I slipped the phone into my pocket and took off in a sprint, my heels clicking urgently against the marble floors of the building. The elevator ride felt like a lifetime as I watched the numbers climb slowly, each floor closer to the room where everything was happening. When the elevator doors opened, I almost ran straight into him. Ethan. He stood at the end of the hallway, his back turned as he spoke to someone in low tones. His face was set, distant, and that was the moment I knew I had lost him. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, my voice trembling but firm. Ethan! His head snapped up, eyes narrowing when he saw me. His jaw clenched, but there was no apology in his gaze. No warmth. Nothing. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice colder than I remembered. "You know exactly what I'm doing here," I said, stepping closer. "You've betrayed me. You've betrayed everything we built. And now, you're about to destroy everything else." He laughed, but it was devoid of humor. "You still don't get it, do you? This isn't about you. This is about the future of Nexus. About the company. About Charlotte." "Charlotte," I said, the word bitter on my tongue. "You're choosing her over me? Over everything. You've lost your place in this world, Ava. You're not the same person you were before. I've moved on. I'm moving forward." I stepped back, shock and disbelief flooding my system. "You're moving forward? With her? After everything?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. His eyes said it all. "Do you even understand what you're doing?" I whispered, almost pleading. "You're letting her pull the strings, Ethan. You're letting her ruin us." He took a step toward me, his face set with determination. "This isn't about us anymore. This is about me, and about what I need to protect." The words cut deep, deeper than I ever thought possible. This wasn't the man I had loved. This was someone else entirely. I turned on my heel, unable to stand there a second longer. But just as I reached the elevator, I heard him call after me. "Don't you dare make this harder than it has to be." But I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The drive back to the penthouse was a blur, the city lights streaking past in a blur of yellow and red. My mind raced faster than the car, the realization of what had just happened sinking in. The merger, the takeover, the lies. Charlotte had won. Damon had won. And Ethan? He had sold us out for the price of his ambition. The penthouse loomed ahead, its sleek, glass facade a reminder of everything I had once dreamed of. But tonight it felt like a prison. I pulled into the garage, the door closing behind me with a soft whir. My heart was pounding, my body shaking with rage and defeat. I grabbed my bag and stormed through the door, the sound of my footsteps echoing through the quiet apartment. I could hear the faint click of keys in the other room. Ethan, working on something, no doubt. I was about to confront him again, but this time it wasn't for answers. It was for closure. I walked into the study where Ethan sat at the desk, his eyes glued to the computer screen. The look on his face told me everything. He had already made his choice. The betrayal had been final. I stood there for a long moment, watching him. He didn't even look up. "I don't know who you are anymore," I said, my voice shaking. "But this isn't you. This isn't who I married." He sighed, but didn't respond, and I felt the weight of the silence suffocating me. It was the final nail in the coffin. The moment I realized it was truly over. "I guess this is goodbye," I said, my throat tight, my voice barely a whisper. I turned away, my heart shattering with each step I took toward the door. But just as I reached for the handle, the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Hello." The voice on the other end was calm, professional. "Ava, this is Nolan from the investment firm handling the merger. I'm afraid we need to discuss the final details of the deal." My heart skipped a beat. "What details?" "The clause about your ownership in the company. It's time to finalize that." He paused. "We've been trying to reach you, but there's been a delay. We'll need your confirmation on the transfer of assets." I felt a chill run through me. What transfer of assets? I asked, my voice trembling. The house, Nolan said, his voice too calm for the words. And your shares? The ones Ethan signed over. I froze. What are you talking about? A smile echoed through his voice. I'm afraid there's nothing you can do now. The deal's already been signed. The assets are gone. And that's when I knew it. Ethan had signed everything. I was already out. But the worst part? I hadn't been alone in this. Someone had been pulling the strings from the beginning. And they were waiting for me to make my move. I stood at the edge of the rooftop, my breath shallow as the city sprawled below me. The wind whipped through my hair, sharp and cold, a fitting contrast to the warmth of the fire I had set in motion. I hadn't anticipated it would end like this, under the flickering lights of the skyline, with the wind howling in my ears. But I had no choice. The truth always has a way of finding the light, no matter how many shadows you throw over it. Sometimes, I said to myself, the hardest part of fighting for what's right is realizing you've already lost everything in the process. I thought of Ethan, standing there earlier, eyes cold, voice steady. His betrayal hadn't been a single moment of weakness, but a careful orchestration. Every step, every decision had led us to this point. Each move deliberate, calculated, and ruthless. It was his ambition that had ruined us both. And in the end, it wasn't just the company that was at stake. It was everything I had ever believed in. The love, the partnership, the future we'd promised each other, the one I'd fought so hard to preserve. And now it was all gone. There was no dramatic scene, no final confrontation. No confrontation between Ethan and me. The final act had already been written. The deal was signed, the assets transferred. The world they had built without me, without us, had crumbled into nothing. What was left was an empty space, a gaping hole where my future had once lived. I moved away from the ledge, my shoes tapping quietly against the concrete. The night was still, but my mind raced. Everything was falling apart. Ethan was still in the background, trying to salvage what little of his empire remained. Charlotte was there, always in the shadows, pulling the strings. But neither of them could escape the consequences of their actions. It was strange, this feeling of finality. At first, I had been consumed by the need for revenge. To see Ethan fall, to watch the empire collapse at his feet. But now, as I stood there alone, I realized that wasn't the answer. The thing I had been fighting for all along wasn't destruction, it was freedom. Freedom from their lies, from the trap they had set for me, and for everyone else they had manipulated. In the quiet of the night, the silence enveloped me. But it wasn't a peaceful silence, it was a silence born from the weight of a truth that had been buried for far too long. I thought back to the phone call from Nolan, the lawyer who had given me the final blow, the confirmation that Ethan's betrayal had gone deeper than I ever could have imagined. The deal was done, but there was more at play here than I had realized. And that's when it hit me. The missing piece. The media had already caught wind of the scandal. Reports had started circulating. Whispers of mismanagement, unethical business practices, and allegations that Ethan had falsified documents to push the merger through. It wasn't just Ethan who had been caught in the lie. It was the entire company. Nexus wasn't just a failed startup. It was a symbol of corporate greed. And when the truth started to unravel, it pulled everything down with it. But even now, in the face of it all, Ethan didn't seem to understand the gravity of what was happening. He had been too blinded by his ambition to see that in the end, you can't run from the truth forever. And when you betray those closest to you, it doesn't just destroy your relationships. It destroys the foundation of everything you've worked for. I walked back into the apartment, the lights dimmed, the silence suffocating. I could feel the weight of it all pressing down on me. But this was the point where the story would change. This wasn't about Ethan anymore. This was about me. People like Ethan, I whispered aloud, they think they can control everything. But power is fleeting. It's built on sand. The phone on the counter buzzed, snapping me out of my thoughts. I didn't need to check it. I already knew who it was, Megan. She'd been my one constant, my lifeline through all of this. She was there when I first walked away, when I was still blinded by the betrayal. And now, she would be here when I finally took the first step toward something new. The phone rang again. This time I answered. Ava, you okay? Megan's voice was a steady anchor in the storm of my thoughts. I'm fine, I said, my voice more sure than I had felt in weeks. I think I'm finally free, Megan. There was silence on the other end. I could hear her take a breath. You are. I'm proud of you. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. I'm not sure what's next, but it's going to be different. I'm not going to let this destroy me. Good. Don't let it, Megan said softly. You've got this. I hung up the phone, feeling the finality of it all. The last of the business with Nexus was over. Ethan's empire, once built on lies, had collapsed, and I could feel the weight of his betrayal lifting off me like a heavy cloak. I stepped away from the counter and moved toward the window, looking out at the city below. There were no more lies, no more manipulations, just the quiet hum of the night. And for the first time in a long while, I felt peace. This wasn't a victory over Ethan. It was a victory over myself. The world may have tried to break me, but in the end, it was my strength that would define me. And this time, I would build something that was mine. No one could take that from me.